Good morning. My name is Szymon Witkowski. On behalf of the Union of Entrepreneurs and Employers, I would like to thank you for your presence at today's debate, Technological Progress and the Labor Market. Our guests today are Glenn Hodson, founder and CEO of the Free Trade Europe, Iwona Kruk, communication lead for Central and Eastern Europe Uber, Sebastian Stodolak, vice president of the Warsaw Enterprise Institute, Cezary Bechański, CEO of the Interfactor Poland SPZOO. I sincerely thank our guests for accepting the invitation for the debate. So let's start with the question for Glenn. The labor market is constantly changing. The biggest revolution in the 20th century was started by Henry Ford, who introduced the 8-hour work system. Today, the development of the modern technology seems to be affecting the labor market most strongly since Ford's revolution. How is the labor market changing? What trends can we observe? Glenn?
Thanks, Simon. Well, absolutely. I think we're seeing real changes underway. I mean, we could talk about disruption, but I think it's also the evolution of the labor market, this kind of move away from the traditional 9 to 5 selling hours to one employer 5 days a week, and the demands for individuals as well to basically have more choice, more flexibility about when, where, and how they work. And I think this is something that's also been turbocharged by sort of remote working and hybrid working during the COVID-19 pandemic. But I think we also see things moving on as well, that it's kind of the genie's out of the bottle, it's not going back, and it's kind of the role of companies and organizations to adapt to this, to have a kind of a open talent strategy. And also as we see the ability for individuals to have more of a work-life balance, more of a different work style. You talked about Henry Ford there, and of course the traditional labor market and labor model hasn't really changed much since those days in terms of why it was set up in this kind of way, very focused on factories, people coming to one location, specific times to be able to carry out work. And I think there's also this demand for individuals to have maybe several things on the go and actually be able to make money from their passion and be able to monetize their skills, expertise, and knowledge in a completely different way.
Yeah, thank you, Glenn. And what do you think, Iwona? What is the local perspective on the labor market? And maybe you would tell us something about the platform working?
So I would say that I couldn't agree more with what Glenn just said. And if we are looking specifically into Polish market, I think that what has happened during COVID significantly changed labor market in general, not only service sector, but markets in general. Now we know that we can work remotely, that we can do so much more within this time frame that we have, and we started to appreciate the flexibility, that actually it is up to us if we do the same work with shorter period of time and we have some time left. And this is the moment when people decided that, okay, so I can do so much more. And this is related to the thing you just said, to the platform work, because when we are talking about platform work, important thing to remember is that it's not only about the couriers and the drivers. I'm talking about courier and drivers because those group of people are especially important for Uber, but we are talking in general about people who provide services, who offer services, and try to find others who want to use those services. So we are talking about IT specialists, about hairdressers, cosmetics, and I think this is very interesting what we are observing right now, because we see that the labor market has changed, but also in terms of the last 2 years, what has happened geopolitically. This is also something that very much affected especially Poland, because we have so many foreigners now in Poland, so many refugees from Ukraine, and all those people want to start earning money immediately. So sometimes they are looking for a solution that will allow them not only start earning money, but also combine this with taking care of the child or with another work. So I would say that what we've seen within the last 3 to 5 years significantly has changed the market, and we see this also in Poland.
Ivana, as you said, one of the most noticeable trends in the is the need to make work more flexible. This is especially noticeable among the young generation. Many of them want to combine work with study or travel, just as you said. And how do we make the labor market more flexible and meet those kind of employees' expectations? What do you think?
Actually, that's a very good question. At Uber, we did study in January this year, and we've asked drivers and couriers what are their main motivators to start using the platform. And 2 first answers were flexibility and being one own boss. So it means that we want to use our time the best way possible, and of course it's very subjective. And also what we want to do is we want to decide how we want to earn, when we want to earn, how much we want to earn, how much we want to work. So it doesn't have to be from Monday to Friday. It can be working during weekends or evenings. So this is something that platform allow us to do, but also we want transparency. So we want to know how much we will earn, in what period of time. We want to decide ourselves that this is only an addition to our normal work. So I would say that flexibility and ability to be our own boss are 2 most important things when we are considering working on a platform. But also, I think and I think we will be discussing this later on, but a very important thing for people who are using platform as their main source of income is discussion about this whole social part. But I assume that we will have this discussion later on.
Okay, Glenn?
Yeah, no, I think echo the comments that Ivona made. And also I'd like to say that we did our study last year as well on the voice of freelancers. And I think the key thing that came out in our study, but also the study that took place this year from Uber, is the fact that the decision makers and opinion formers aren't listening to freelancers, open talent themselves. They're just listening to traditional labor. They're listening to the trade unions who have this idea of a job which hasn't changed since the 1950s, 1960s. So I'd say that the big thing is to actually speak to the people who are actually doing these things now, understand the drivers for why they've made these choices, and be able to listen to them in terms of formulating policy which facilitates these movements as opposed to blocks it. So that would be my one big takeaway on these things.
Okay. Sebastian, what do you think about the labor market of the future? You know, right now in Poland, most of the people work from 9 to 7. It's a standard option. But if we look at the US, the research conducts that most of the people in US have some experience, at least some experience, in working for platform and other alternatives. So what do you think if those trends will be introduced to Poland also?
Yeah, I mean, you know, the US is the leader of the economy in terms of everything mostly, so probably, yes, those trends will be also visible soon in Poland. Actually, they are visible in Poland right now. I think it's worth thinking of what competences will be useful in the future, especially for kids, which school to send, right? And today, actually, I found in the internet very interesting thing. One of the American scientists asked ChatGPT, and actually this short story about the scientist that ChatGPT kind of explains or gives part of the answer, to come up with possible ways that could prevent Roman Empire from collapse. Yeah, so, and ChatGPT came up with 4 remarks, 4 suggestions. First, build aqueducts with layers of sand and charcoal and add a little salt or vinegar to the water to keep it clean and healthy. Second one, use fire and water to create air pressure that can move a piston or a wheel. Third one, observe the tiny animals grow in decaying matter and can enter the body through wounds or contact with sick people or animals. Wash hands and instruments with soap or alcohol, boil water, food before consumption, isolate sick people from healthy ones, and dispose of waste properly. And the last one, wrap amber with fur or wool to create sparks that can attract light objects. Wrap a coil of wire around a piece of iron and connect it to a battery made of metal plates immersed in acid to create an iron stone that can attract or repel other iron stones. Use these principles to create devices such as telegraphs, compasses, motors, and lights. So, yeah, those are quite clever ways, because you can imagine that even the ancient people from the Roman Empire could understand at least partially what's being said here. But why I'm talking about this story of the scientists asking some questions to ChatGPT, because probably asking the right questions would be one of the most valued competences in the future. You have the tools like ChatGPT, artificial intelligence. You have the knowledge. You have everything that was not present back in the day. You can access everything, but what you can't access are the questions. You are the one who is supposed to ask the correct questions, and in every actually branch of economy, that could be the most important competence. In think tanks, we are asking questions. In lobbying organizations as ZPP, they are asking questions how to serve interests of business the best way possible. In computer science, people who just program things, they will go away, they will vanish, because they will be replaced with ChatGPT. But people who say, well, what if we do it a slightly different way, try this, try that, people with creative questions will be of the biggest value. So that's my kind of clue here.
Thank you, Sebastian. Cezary, do you want to add something to this topic?
First of all, I would like to, I agree with Glenn, and I agree also with Sebastian, that the key point will be in the future to ask right questions to ChatGPT, and it will be one of the most important skills in the future, yes? But no one in school, you can learn it, yes? So this is just from your practice. And in my opinion, and in fact, in the future, when ChatGPT will get access to the internet, imagine what will happen with, for example, law firms, yes? If you have all law in ChatGPT, you can ask him, for example, show me, for example, show me results for this kind of question, yes? And for example, law firms, they will be not needed as much. I mean, so many lawyers will be not needed in the future, yes? The same will be with governmental officials, yes? Because if ChatGPT, for example, get access, for example, to final statements of the companies, is very easy to control, yes? So if I'm state, I recommend to state to develop this technology and take this technology to the governmental institutions.
Okay, Cezary, but you know, the labor market would be really changing in the future. So what competencies will be key to the labor market of the future? Researchers by the World Economic Forum indicates that up to 65% of the children starting elementary school right now will work in an occupation that does not yet exist. This is a huge challenge. How do we prepare for it?
If you look at the school system, it is almost the same from 100 years, yes? Really, it's the same. That's why I also agree with Glenn that those trade unions from 50s, 60s, it still exists, yes, in the same field. So what I would like to say is that the school is completely not prepared for this revolution, yes? Because still you have, for example, homework that children must write essay about something, yes? What is the sense to do it if you can ask ChatGPT and it answers you in 1 minute, yes? So all system, or education system must be changed. And for me, in my opinion, we must teach people more analytic skills. Yes, they must more analyze something. Yes, because if you look, you have some subject like mathematics. Yes, like maths, like languages. Yes. But, for example, where's logic? Yes, it should be more logic, more technology, but school always is not enough fast like market, yes? Look what happened. It was internet revolution 20, 30 years ago. The education system is still the same, yes? Something changed? No, yes? It was like 100 years when it was all the time the same. So about the key skills in the future, first of all, asking right questions, yes? This is first of all. And second, what I'm thinking about is that average people in some fields, which are average, yes, in some professions, they will be not needed. So, or you will be some professional in some branch, and you will be to able something more than ChatGPT or other AI, yes. You will get a job, yes. But for others, this is not like this that others will not get job in the future, yes. Because imagine like 100 years ago when industry was changed, yes. They were more machines, and look, the people still were needed, but in other fields, yes. So the same will happen in this field, and also if you look at demography, that in the future will be less people in the world, yes. Even in Africa or even in Asia, they recognize that to have 6 or 7 children is not like what is the future, yes. So it will be less people, so I don't think that it will be a problem that it will be no job for them.
Okay, so education must focus on the skills, yeah, basically.
Not on the skills, more on logic analyze, yes, because if you ask children now, for example, if they are 15, 14 years old, in European Union, most of them, they will tell you that they want to be influencer or YouTuber, something like this, yes? If you ask the same question in China, you will get the answer that I would like to be some scientist, for example, yes? So to prepare children is very difficult. We must give them more wide frames. Yes, it should not be a system that you teach that they teach you for test to do one test. Yes, they must teach you to be more flexible on the labor market.
But you know, the analysis is precisely what artificial intelligence does. So if you say that lawyers will be replaced by artificial intelligence, you precisely say that artificial intelligence will be able to conduct basic legal research. So and the analysis, what is useful to this or that case? This will be the task of the artificial intelligence. So I wouldn't dismiss totally the knowledge.
Yes,
and
exactly.
the able to synthesize knowledge. So recently, I'm coming back to the ChatGPT, but it's so fascinating. And I let my daughter play with that. And she asked, what are the species that are no more? So the species that were back in the history and somehow they ceased to exist. So it mentions a few species, of course, including dinosaurs, but then on the end it mentioned dragons, suggesting that dragons existed at some point in history. Well, they did not, obviously. Or in order to come up with the question about the ancient Rome and the possible ways to prevent it from collapse, you also have to have this knowledge that something like ancient Rome existed, right? So you have to have the basic knowledge. So the school cannot totally focus on how to use modern technologies and how to write only the curious and the right questions. That's very important. But you cannot forget about very universal common knowledge. It will still be important in the future.
I would like to answer. I didn't say that school is not needed in this look how it is now, yes, because you must have the basic knowledge. The basic knowledge is needed, yes, about the law firms, what I said before. For example, if you have one big task to do, you have 10 lawyers which work on that, yes. But in the future, for example, you will need 4 lawyers which are more specialized in some kind of law. So you must have knowledge, but also you must have those kind of skills to ask right questions, yes.
I think we have a very interesting discussion, because when I recall discussions like few years back, when no one even thought about AI and GPT chat, I think that the answer would be that everyone should learn how to code, and we need IT people, and we need programmers, and we need analysts. And here we are discussing about AI, and I think what is fascinating that it went slightly different direction, and now the technology will allow us to use skills that are more natural to people, because I believe that logical thinking is something natural to people. So I'm very curious how we will be answering those questions in a few years.
There's this Polish writer, science fiction writer, very famous, Jacek Dukaj, and he foresaw that we're gonna be witnessing a gradual disappearance of the writing word, that all will be visualized and the feelings and emotions will be transmitted directly from person to person. And this is basically what you say. His forecasts were totally wrong, at least based on ChatGPT or those AI advancements we are witnessing. They are based on writing and reading and being able to do it, right? Totally surprising.
Yeah, so let's go for the next question. One of the biggest fears about the future of the labor market is that the public that is in the public space is that robots will take our jobs and we won't be needed anymore. Is such a threat real? Are automation and AI technologies are an opportunity or a threat? What do you think, Sebastian?
I mean, we have record low unemployment in the global scale, 5.8%. And since the dawn of capitalism, we've been witnessing gradual automatization and robotization and so on and so on and so on. So the correlation or this trend tells us totally opposite to what skeptics and pessimists say. This is one thing, but of course you can't assume that the trend will go on forever. There are risks, but those risks are rather for the intermediary periods where you have a disruption in a specific sector. Then you could have so-called technological unemployment. But this is nothing to last forever. It will gradually disappear in every branch of economy.
Glenn, what do you think? Will the jobs working will be a privilege for people?
I think there's always a lot of concern about evolution and new technologies, but I think history clearly shows that these things are unfounded in terms of the problems. And I think that the technology usually creates more jobs than it actually kills. And I think that the jobs that actually disappear, a lot of them are the dangerous, dirty, and repetitive jobs that people don't really want to do in the first place. And I also think this idea of the evolution of what a job is as well. I think there's always a lot of negativity, but it just shows that it's unfounded. In the same way that just because technology gets rid of certain jobs is like saying, well, medicine's got rid of the need for grave diggers because people are living longer. There's no real sound foundation for these kind of things. And I think in 5-10 years' time there'll be a whole swathe of new jobs, roles, and responsibilities will be created that we haven't even thought of yet, and they'll probably be more based on technology, but also using more skills, expertise, and more value that will be linked to these as well.
Ivona, one of the I think the biggest topic in modern technology is automotive cars, intelligent cars, smart cars. Isn't that a threat for your company?
I wouldn't say that, because Uber is also working on this kind of technology. I would say that this will be complementary to services still provided by people. Like at this point, I wouldn't say that this is a threat. I'm very curious in which direction we will go. I think that something that we cannot forget is that people have their tendencies, and there is this barrier of trust to technologies and to specifically artificial intelligence. So I think as a humanity, we need to get to the point when we will start trusting the technology, and we will be sure that this can take care of us.
Okay, certainly the rapid technological progress we are seeing right now and its impact on economic and social life is also being recognized by government. important and relatively controversial pieces of legislation are being created in European Union. So Ivona, you represent the industry that will be greatly affected by those regulations that are currently conducted in EU. What's your opinion on this topic?
I think Platform Work Directive is, in general, this whole discussion is a step in the right direction, because as said before, it's not only drivers and couriers, but so many people nowadays use different kind of platforms to provide their services that we definitely need a discussion how to make sure that their work is also secured. But the current shape of the directive, I would say, is referring to what Glenn just said, is very much based on our traditional approach to work. And something that we as Uber are a little bit concerned about is that first thing should be asking people what actually they want, people who actually use the platforms, for whom it will be a huge risk if at some point they all will be classified as employees, because it will mean that they have to work for a certain amount of hours per week, that they have to be available from 9 to 5, for example. So yeah, also last year we did this research with Debata, and this research showed that I think it was 65% of people do not work any kind of do not want to have any kind of contract if it would mean that they will lose flexibility, and more than 95% of people actually, because this research was done on the people who use platform to earn money, not only drivers and couriers, but also different groups of people, like programmers and people from the beauty industry. So we asked them, and more than 95% of people said that they appreciate the flexibility they have at the moment, and that they don't want the government to interfere into that. So I think that at one point we have this need to discuss with the government, with the unions, what has to be done to make sure that people also have social security. But on the other hand, I think it's very important for people nowadays to assure them that they will not lose their way of earning money. Also, what we need to remember that specifically now, when we have inflation and people feel very insecure about their jobs, they need to know that there are some ways that they can earn and it's accessible to them.
Actually, it's worth adding that probably innovations should not be plugged into democratic process. It should be the sphere of freedom. So imagine platforms like Uber or Airbnb before they got into market. Imagine they're being voted by the people whether it should or not function. You know, Uber, the idea that everybody can drive you around town, no way, come on. Airbnb, the idea that your neighbor will be hosting some strangers, come on, not in my neighborhood, right? So the same with the jobs. We're talking about the labor market, the changes. What we are witnessing is a very intense innovation in terms of how work looks like. We cannot at that point try to consult that with unions. I mean, it's stupid. Unions are the dinosaurs. They are representing the old order. They are unions basically because Ford came up with the idea of the factory. So they cannot understand what's going on right now. By definition, we should leave it to the freedom process, and then afterwards we can judge, we can see whether it led us into the right direction.
I think that would be an ideal scenario, but also like there are a group of people that are very concerned about new technologies and about platform work as well. So I think it's very important what happens country to country. And for example, when we look into Poland, Polish market in terms of drivers is regulated. And in general, it means that this European Platform Work Directive is not necessary for our market, because it means that like when we are talking about drivers who use Uber platform, very common model is fleet partner model. So they are actually employed under an entrepreneur. So this means that there are markets where this has been already regulated, and it's crucial to consider this, to take this into consideration, that in each country we have slightly different regulations. That's one thing. And second thing, that as just Sebastian said, we need to give people freedom.
Yeah, I think that government does not know what people want, and the key to success is those individuals who knows that if they would ask the customer about their needs, they would not get the right answer. Just like the Henry Ford said, that if he would ask the customers what they want, they would answer they want faster horses, and the cars would never be invented and presented to the customers by Ford right there. But you know, the government is always a step behind those kind of innovators.
But there's also examples of how these things don't work. For example, Spain, where they brought in the presumption of employment, what actually happened was that the number of people earning money, being employed, went down. Their actual wages went down at the same time. So it just shows that this kind of interference in this way is actually sort of negative. And also, Spain's also a great example of how not to do things in terms of these licenses which were brought in, which was also a starting point for fraud and corruption as well. So people would take these licenses and then illegally subcontract it to 4 or 5 other drivers, and they could use that. So, you know, it's not solving any of the issues that it was put in place to be able to address.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go for another question. Has the current geopolitical situation, especially in the context of Russian Federation's assault on Ukraine, affected the labor market? Poland is in urgent need of workers in many industries. Can migrants fill this gap? What kind of migration policy should we pursue, Cezary?
Okay, so first of all, I would like to start that I was sitting here almost 1 year ago, and we had a discussion with our Warsaw Enterprise Institute what will be the future of Polish labor market according to refugees from Ukraine. And economic situation there was not so good. Also, as you see, there's huge inflation, yes, but 80% of refugees from Ukraine, they are already working. So look, we have the lowest unemployment rate from 30 years, yes? So it is around 600,000 of refugees or 900,000 of refugees which are already working, yes? And it was space for the market for them, as you can see. So look how strong is labor market in Poland. So what about the future, the migration policy? There is no migration policy in Poland. I say this from over 5 years in public, that there is no public program in this field. It was only one program, more Ukrainians and more Belarusian people in last 5 years, and that's all. There are a lot of specialists in other countries, but all visa system or residence card system in Poland, it doesn't fit to those people. Look, it's very simple, it's a very simple thing. In Qatar, they were building stadiums for World Cup, yes, and there were a lot of construction workers from other countries with very huge experience. In Poland, all the time is the problem with construction workers, yes. Why we don't work on this field, for example? We can take people with experience, yes, which they were working very long time, and also the life in Poland, if you compare with Middle East, is so much better for employee. So, to summarize this, we should have one common migration policy. We don't have this, so we should talk about this and establish this in the future.
Ivona?
One more
Okay.
thing I would like to also add. One more thing is bureaucracy. If you are a foreigner, you face a lot of bureaucracy and a lot of problems in your life here. Because you have to, if you would like to stay longer here, you have to apply for temporary residence card. They can refuse your application because just somebody think about something. That's all, yes? You can make a reappeal. It will take 2 years. If you would like to apply for work permit to a new company because you would like to change job, you have to wait sometimes 3-4 months. It's another big problem. So the employees from the other states, they're slaves of employer. So it should also change in the future.
Even for Ukrainians, it's still very hard. They have only one passport center in Warsaw, only one. Like 300,000 or 400,000 people.
We are talking 1 year ago when the whole crisis was starting, and we also put as Warsaw Enterprise Institute that we should delay for Ukrainians work permit. They should not have work permit for work. Yes, this is the most important. And look what happened. If there is no so much bureaucracy to employ foreigner, now they have job. So we should more liberalize in the future also for some other foreigners and make migration policy.
Ivana, for many migrants, Uber is platforms like Uber are their first job. So, what's your opinion on those topics?
Yes, because it's relatively easy to start. I'm saying relatively easy because, as said before, drivers' market is regulated, so they have to obtain the license and meet all the requirements. So it takes some time to start, but it's still, I would say, it's relatively short, and the app allows them to use their skills. I mean, driving skills, and I would say it's quite easy to do that because you have geolocalization, so even if you're in a new city, it's quite easy actually to navigate around. But the other thing, because we are talking about bureaucracy, that's the one thing, but the other is that many foreigners who came here, especially women refugees, came here with children. And I think it's good that now I would say that the situation is much more stable, but it's also important to give them a chance to start earning money in a way that will allow them still to be with children in home for some time at least. And I think this is why they are interested in using platforms, not only Uber platform, but also other platforms. For example, we as Uber recently announced that we have this women driver program when we provide financial support and logistic support for women who would like to start driving as drivers. And I think these kind of programs are also super helpful because at one hand, we really need people to come to Poland because it's very beneficial for our economy. But on the other, we need to think of what kind of programs will encourage them to come here and make it beneficial for us, for all of us.
Sebastian, do we need migrants? Are they important for us? What do you think?
I mean, the answer is quite obvious.
I think so. I think so.
And yeah, of course we do need migrants. Look at all those countries who are successful and rich. They are countries of immigrants. All those countries who are poor, they're countries of immigrants. They are emigrating from those regions. So yes, of course, to whom should we be open? That's the question that is appearing in the political sphere. Some say, well, let's welcome only those people from the close cultural circles, right? So resembling our culture, like Christian culture. So we won't have problems like the Western Europe have with say, migrants from Africa. I don't know whether that's the correct way of approaching this thing, but this is a legitimate objection that should be reconsidered, because opening to everyone is like the ideal scenario. It's the ideal scenario. But take a look at Germany and the refugee crisis 2015. They welcomed also almost 1 million refugees from countries who are not close culturally or socially to Germans. And those people could not even speak German. And it's not so easy to learn German. I tried it for 8 years and I failed. And they have the problem of accessing labor market precisely for those very basic reasons. And the problem is still there after 8 years. After 8 years, it's still not solved. I remember speaking to one economist from Germany, and he said, well, we're quite successful in welcoming immigrants, those from this refugee crisis. I mean, how do you measure the success? Because 3 out of 10 are working. That's the success rate of Germans. So, yeah, so that's the legitimate question that should be talked about. How to steer the immigration, yet not limiting people's freedom to leave the poor regions, because that's also the other side of the coin. People are escaping poverty, and they have to have the right to do it. So how to do this, how to make those two objections, to those two arguments at peace, I don't know.
I would like to add something. I would like to talk about what happened in Czech Republic. In Czech Republic, it's like this, that if you are a foreigner and you would like to come to Czech Republic, you must get work permit. This is the similar like in Poland, but you will not get work permit so easily like in Poland, because in Czech Republic they have limits for every profession. So, for example, in this town we need 50 locksmiths, for example, yes. So they make the migration policy for foreigners that they made some limits for every profession in which those foreigners they can work. Yes, so this is well organized what is going on now in Czech Republic.
Glenn, maybe you could share with us your experiences with migration.
Yeah, and then we have the sort of the example in Sweden as well. It's very similar to sort of Germany, taking in sort of large amounts of people, but not having a policy to deal with them. So you bring lots of people in, but then of course you have a highly regulated, unionized labor market, whereby these people aren't allowed to actually enter the labor market, earn money, and get jobs. So this kind of sort of opening up, which is necessary within that, and of course in the same way, as Ivona was saying, there is a need for individuals, and there is a need for opportunities to through platforms, but also traditional employment, to be able to get into the labor market. And just this last week, from the technology employers group said that 8 out of 10 technology jobs couldn't actually find applicants on the local marketplace. So, of course, companies, organizations were suffering. The society and the economic growth is actually sort of limited by this lack of individuals as well. So it's there, but it's unfortunately a problem that politicians and decision makers don't want to actually deal with, because of the problems that it leads to. As we see in sort of the UK now, with the kind of the stop the boats narrative which is coming in, but all this does is actually to prevent the high-skilled and good people from actually being attracted to the labour market as well. So you need to be very clever about how you do these things, because certainly in a European context, the demand for talent, the demand for skills and knowledge is there, and it's not going to go away. It's just going to increase.
Okay, so to summarize our discussion, how will we work in the future, and are we as a society ready for the changes that may await us? Glenn, what do you think?
I think we're not ready for it at the moment. I think we're still very much in this old-fashioned mindset in terms of what is a job, that hasn't really changed. And I think it will have to, over time, individuals will have to have a more sort of open viewpoint of how they will earn money and actually indulge in their passions to be able to do things they're really interested in. And I think similarly, the companies and organizations will have to have a more of an open, flexible talent strategy to maybe have a mix of 9-to-5 workers along with consultants, freelancers, and buying in on a sort of a short, medium, or long term the skills that are required within the organisation. And at the same time, this is probably the most difficult. The politicians, the unions will also have to accept the reality and get out of the dinosaur mindset and actually sort of realise that things have changed and harness the power of what's happening, as opposed to pretending that it doesn't exist and trying to stop it.
Sebastian?
Yeah, first of all, I think that the question posed by some people, whether we will work at all in the future, should be answered. So my guess is yes, we will. So there's no Garden of Eden awaiting us. to enter it again. No, no way. We'll still be working, and all those ideas that the machines will replace us, we'll be just sitting at home writing poetry or watching movies. Yeah, cool, but this will not materialize. That's the first thing I'd like to point out. When you cited, when you quoted this report from Davos experts, right, World Economic Forum, that 65% of the professions in the future, they don't exist yet. I don't know where do they get their numbers from, but when I look back 100 years or 200 years, there are people delivering the goods from the same categories. So the people who are making some equipment for the horses and carrots, not carrots. What was the name of this wagons behind the freaking horse?
Carriages. Yes.
Carriages. Sorry, yeah, not carrots. Carriages. They changed. Of course, their profession changed, and now we have cars. But the service, the kind of good delivered, is the same category: transportation, communication. All those categories will be still there. The forms of the delivery will differ. So I would not imagine a world in which we are like facing totally new realities. No, it will be not like that. We'll be still drinking coffee in 100 years from now. Don't worry. So, and somebody would have to make this coffee for us. I wonder whether it would be robots or not. Take a look at the robot in the passage on the way of the central station in Warsaw. Nobody is using that because there's no pleasure to, you have this mechanical arm serving you coffee. It's not interesting. You've seen it 100 times in movies. It's not interesting, nothing new. And you can have this interaction with a nice bartender, nice barista. So first of all, the world will not change to a degree that we imagine it will change. It will change in the direction probably we already spoke about, and also we will work. So that's my 3 points.
Sebastian, so if not utopia, then maybe some kind of cyberpunk dystopia, or maybe something in between.
What I'm afraid of is that some crazy guy will really implement this universal basic income. And the capitalist class, don't worry, they're smart people, and they will use that opportunity. So the only people who will harness the goods on the future system in that setting will be the really creative, those who are the really creative people. So imagine everybody's wearing shoes produced by machines and designed by machines, but there are some people inventing new kinds of shoes, like totally new kinds of shoes. They'll be much richer than Elon Musk, much richer. So if those leftist ideas will materialize, we're gonna find ourselves in a very unequal world.
Ivana?
I think it's good that we are saying that we still will be working, because I think in general working is very helpful and crucial for human beings just to stay sane. But I think that what will change, and maybe just referring to your first question, I think we are ready now. I think that we want to use technologies to help us manage our own time. I think we will more appreciate flexibility, because we learned during COVID that this is something that we can explore, and this is something that we can benefit from. So I would say that a few years back, technology would be something that we are a little bit afraid of in terms of future of work. But now I think this is something that can embrace new skills, that can help us to grow ourselves. So I think that will be the future of work as well.
Cezary?
Okay, so when you see posters and pictures 50 years ago about the future, how it looked, the future, you will see flying cars, yes? I don't know how you, but I came today by normal car, yes? So the discussion what will be in 50 years is on the same level, which I mentioned now, yes? So about the future, I think the companies should they should use this ChatGPT or other AI services, yes, but it will be not like a revolution very fast. It will be like a evolution in in the future, yes. So it would take longer time. Like people were they were imagining about the future. Now it's totally different what they were thinking about, yes. So we should focus just on develop ourselves. I think at the moment this is the most important.
By the way, there was a book precisely about that. Where is my flying car? Written by an American engineer who is a very remarkable writer guy who wrote a book about his childhood, where everybody was thinking and talking about big ideas like flying to the moon and those flying cars, and he's complaining and trying to also identify the reasons why it did not materialize. Of course, we weren't to the moon, but we stopped there. No flying cars yet, some drones, but maybe so. Interesting thing. I recommend you reading that. Where is my flying car?
Okay, so now we have a moment for questions from the audience, if there are any. If not, thank you very much. Thank you our guests for participating in the debate, and thank you all for being here today.